Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to the Tuesday Telecast from the Joyful Path. Today, we have a very special episode. We are about to talk to Crystal Phoenix. Crystal has risen from the ashes to take her fiery self and show it to the world. So this is an episode for domestic abuse survivors. And if you are that, or you just want to know more in order to help someone else, then I appreciate and encourage you listening to what we are about to talk about so that we can get more people understanding that we can stop the pain. So, without further ado, let's see if Crystal is out there and bring her into the house. Hi, Crystal. Welcome to the Joyful Path and the Tuesday Telecast.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
I'm so glad to have you on here. So I'm going to let you tell our audience a little bit about you and where you are in the world right now. And yeah.
All right. Well, my name is Crystal Bay. I go by the moniker of Crystal Phoenix as I am embodied a phoenix who rose from the ashes. I am a domestic abuse awareness advocate, speaker, and author, as well as a coach. Um, I'm in Missouri. I mean, Missouri. And basically, I'm all about rising above the ashes and taking pain and anger and turning it into something positive and repurposing that energy into something good. I literally, like, my life felt like it was over in 2019, 2020. And now here I am about to publish a book. I refuse to let anybody bring me down, and I give a voice to those that feel they're silenced as well. Because no, everybody should have a voice. They should be allowed to feel and be who they are without judgment or, you know, being told no, that's wrong.
Absolutely. Beautiful. So, um, and you're in Missouri, and are you in Missouri by choice, or are you in Missouri temporarily? Is this your home?
Um, well, I was born and raised in South Florida, and my ex somehow convinced me to move to Iowa and basically isolated me. And well, needless to say, I wound up after being there for 9 years and being systematically beaten down. I met Matt, who became my best friend and literally saved my life a few times. And after he helped me get out, and eventually, the friendship turned into love, and we've been together for 3 years now. But within the journey of breaking away from my ex and everything, we wound up having to sell our house in Iowa and move to Missouri, where we have a support system. His parents have been amazing. They're like, no, get on your feet fully. Don't try and get an apartment. Don't do any of it. Just stay with us. And they've been an amazing support while we've been transitioning our life. But eventually we do want to move back to the coast. We both miss the ocean and the warmth and everything. He was born in Texas, and through his formative years he was in Saudi Arabia and everything. He likes the warmer climate too.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, nothing like a cold phoenix. So so tell me, and tell the audience about what you're going, as you said, by the moniker of Crystal Phoenix, and that is your everything, your what you use for your coaching and your business.
My
And
book is even titled Rise of Crystal Phoenix.
yeah, yeah. So tell me about the time before the Phoenix was there, or was there not a time before the Phoenix was there? Were you always aware of the Phoenix in you?
I was. She just kind of was unfortunately caged for a while.
Mm,
Um, it kind of, when I got out, kind of the growth set reminds me of in Harry Potter when Fox would have a burning day
mm,
and you see him, little and like forming out of the ashes. That's kind of how I felt. I always say it's like, yeah, the fire burns bright, but you have to burn first. And the growth, it's painful and it's hard, but at the same time, it taught me a lot about myself. So yeah, she's always been there. I've always been a fighter. I've always been the one to stick up for the little guy. You know, I I see a homeless person on the street and I just stopped at McDonald's and I'll give them my food because you know, I can empathize and they need it more than me. It's not, if I have the money to go to McDonald's, well, obviously I can turn around and go back. And even if I can't, I know I've got food at home. I've always been about helping others. It's always been something that's just in me, you know,
yeah,
and sometimes it's hurt me in the long run, but at the same time, I don't regret anything, even being with my ex, because it brought me to where I am now.
right. So at some point you had to help yourself before you could help
Ab-
others anymore, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
and
Um,
that's something that we all have to learn, but we don't as much when we don't need the help. So when you need the help and there's and you're the one who needs it, how is that? Did you have was Matt there at that point? Did you reach out? Did you
um,
have to reach in first?
it honestly, the that process, um, Matt was there, but mostly it was reaching within. Um, when I had made the choice to get out, um, it was more of a woke, rattled awake moment when I made the choice to finally fully leave.
Hmm.
My ex had been put in jail once again for violating the no contact order and for being, well, abusive. And we were staying off and on at Matt's because I had a hard time staying at the apartment. Too many bad memories. And we were walking there, and my now 10-year-old, and I'll call her Maka, it's one of her nicknames, she looks at me and she goes, Mommy, it's okay if daddy hurts you as long as he comes home. I fell to my knees. My heart stopped. I grabbed her and my sister in my arms, and all I could hear in my head was, F no, they are not growing up thinking this is okay. And since he was in jail, it was easier for me to get away. And I had tried before, but I didn't have someone to truly support me and protect me that I felt comfortable with. Here's my best friend who had literally saved my life more than once from him. And he said, Come home. You can stay with me. You can, and we did the friends with benefits, but monogamous for a while, because he was honestly the only person I really felt comfortable with.
Yeah.
And, but it took a lot of introspection and everything because I was so broken. My anxiety was through the roof. You couldn't close a door hard without me having a panic attack,
Mm-hmm.
literally. And so it took a lot of introspection. EMDR, it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Meditation, working through a lot of those emotions, play therapy with the girls. It was a lot of self work with Matt, just kind of being there, you know, being supportive, holding me when I cried, being accepting, just being there was the most important thing, and he was very indulgent with all of my whims, with my art supplies and with music stuff and whatever I needed to try and move forward. And he was, so it was a combination of me I did all the work, but he was there as that support. He was my rock.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't have, I will say it, I couldn't have done it without it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So there's a point at which we don't stay in the fire. We don't stay near the fire being burned. We go through the fire. We go
Mhm.
through that, and
Mhm.
so that we get to the other side. And it's the scariest thing,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Because it's
Who's going to believe me? Who's, you know, so many people that saw the abuse, both the mental and the physical, just betrayed me and like would tell my ex where I was, what I was doing, just completely just people that I considered like sisters and things would just, I truly learned who was there for me and who wasn't.
mm,
And getting through the fire, because it not only the legal side and everything else, you know, there was a point where I went to the police with 4 pages of threats that had only been within 24 hours. And they physically heard him threaten me because they had me call him and they did nothing. So I had no faith in the justice system, nothing. So all I literally had, it was me and Matt against everything, trying to fight for my kids, trying to fight for everything. And instead of, living in the victim zone, because during this time I also lost my sister and everything, I lost 23 people in the years between 2020 and 2022. Mhm. So, and only 3 to COVID.
interesting.
So it was just like the world just was like, no, you're gonna fall. And one of my favorite quotes is fate whispered to her, "You can't withstand the storm." And she whispered back, "I am the storm." And I do a lot of like the adult coloring and stuff.
Yeah.
And I actually have that in a sugar skull. Like half of it's a sugar skull and half of it's the quote.
Yeah.
I colored that and it was on my wall for a long time because as a reminder, it's like, no, I am the storm. I am going to overcome this. You're not going to beat me down. You're not going to break me. And when I got through the fire and ironically meeting Anastasia, who is the producer of Expose, in a support group.
Yeah.
And that was the turning point. She invited me to be a part of Expose, which is a documentary about rising from domestic violence. And that was the first time I felt heard and felt the healing cleansingness of it, of sharing. So, mhm,
So it's, yeah, supportive and
mhm,
supported platform, which
mhm,
was having you say your story and where you were coming from, not having to prove
mhm,
yourself, not
mhm,
to
mhm.
be
Yeah.
saying anything that was
Mhm.
like you were
Mhm.
believed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I was believed and I wasn't judged for, well, why did you go back? Why did you this? Why did you that? And it's like those questions bother me. It's victim shaming. It's like it's like blaming a rape victim for wearing a short skirt. You
yeah,
know, she
yep,
asked for it. No, she didn't.
yeah,
She wanted to feel attractive. That feel feeling beautiful and attractive is not an invitation to take what you want,
right,
you know?
exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Um, when and this is something that we in our society have like there's layers and layers of pain that and it's why it's so important to get the stories out and that we can not stay in that pain but go through
I
but
call
we
it the victim zone.
yeah and we're so used to it and even the people who ask the questions are they're asking it because of genuine ignorance
Mhm.
of things that they haven't heard the other side of before. And until they hear the other side and actually listen and not just the rhetoric of how many times do we hear that women ask for this and men act like that and it's not
Stereotypes.
yeah, and it's what we hear most. So I want to talk about that, about breaking the stereotypes and how it is that you have two young women at this point, very young. You have two girls, and how how you're working now on breaking the stereotypes and just say not just breaking them, but setting a new normal.
Um, well, I do all of this because I I lost my girls. Everything. The state, yeah, I don't really want to get into the logistics of it, but needless to say, because I spoke up and I stood my ground, I lost everything. When it comes to my family, they know that I'm still here. They know I'm still fighting.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to make a world a better place for them because I'm sorry. I didn't ask to be berated and cheated on and broken bones and concussions. I didn't ask for any of it. You know, I begged him for to go to therapy. I didn't want to give up at first, you know. I'm I beat the stereotype at least. The statistics say it takes 7 times to leave.
Mm,
Um, it only took me twice. But even after though, I still wanted to help him because I didn't want to, I think, admit to myself that 10 years of my life was a lie and that he was always that monster. You know, I wanted to blame drugs. I wanted to blame everything else. But at the end of the day, it just is him. It's who he was. And I just didn't want to face it. But I'm trying to make the world a better place by, people being more understanding and not looking the other way. You know, when you see somebody berating their wife or berating their husband, because men can be abused just as easily with women.
yes.
Um, you know, and mental abuse is 1,000 times worse than physical because physical scars heal, you know. I mean, yes, I can still see the matching scars on my face, but at the same time, those don't phase me emotionally. But the emotional abuse is the harder one. And so when I see people berating somebody, it's like, wait a minute, no, what what did they do? So I try to stick up for them. I give a voice to those that are, no, you're not stupid. You're better than that. You deserve better. Whether it's in a professional world or romantic, or even familiar. I have quite a few kids that have adopted me because their parents didn't accept them for who they were
Mm.
and, weren't supportive in their decisions or anything, you know, just being that support, showing, inclusion, acceptance, love, kindness,
Yes.
saying hi, even just saying hi to somebody in the grocery store and complimenting their haircut or something can literally save a life because they could have been feeling down, not noticed, like nobody cared. And just that one simple hello and nice haircut or nice hair color, whatever, makes them feel seen, acknowledged, and changes their outlook. It's like maybe there is good things in the world, and that is what I'm trying to do. And I'm trying.
Yeah, that change of narrative and that change of being heard and seen makes it
Mhm,
so that the pain doesn't go on. Because the more that
mhm,
have pain, the more that we are going to perpetuate that pain because that's all we know. So um there's it's so important what you're doing. And the thing is, everybody needs to know that they belong.
mhm,
And
mhm,
telling somebody that they have
mhm,
a nice haircut and
mhm,
allowing them to be seen
mhm,
allows them to realize that, oh, I can be seen,
mhm,
I
mhm,
belong.
mhm,
We have to come through and realize first that we belong.
mhm,
And it's a crazy thing about humanity because we're born belonging.
mhm. Children, when they're born, is so they're the innocence and love. We don't learn to hate or be anything like that until we're older. When a child is born, they love everything. They don't understand anger or hatred or prejudice. You know, I my my 16-year-old is gay, my son. He was a surrogacy for my sister, but he's gay. And I laughed my butt off when he told me. I blame Elmo because I raised him until he was 3 and he was obsessed with Elmo's World. Just Elmo's World, not Sesame Street. And I jokingly blame Elmo, but I always knew, and it doesn't bother me one way or the other. But my mother, oh, it's just a phase.
If it is or if it isn't, you don't know. And it's
Yeah.
not your and
Mhm.
it's your job to accept
Mhm.
and to love,
And
not to
exactly. But I looked at him and I was like, okay, well, how do you know? And he goes, well, I dated one girl and she was such a crazy bitch. I'll never do that again. I burst out laughing. I was like, not all women are like that, honey. Okay, fine. I'm asexual, but I lean towards guys. Okay. Well, what's your type? And in all seriousness, and we're on a Zoom call because he lives in San Diego. And he goes to me, I like the short, chubby guys because they're so cute and cuddly. I'm like, yep, you're gay. And it's just things like that, I think it's adorable. But talking to even Matt's family, like the older generation, they're very like homophobic, and I'm scared to bring my son around them because I don't want him to feel judged. And I hate that the world is like this. You know, doesn't matter who you love, whether they're, white, black, man, woman, you know, whatever. I mean, if they're purple with green polka dots, maybe they need to see a doctor. But I I accept everybody for who they are. You never know the storm that they're walking through. Somebody could be having a bad day and that's why they snap at you. I always give them a chance to, validate themselves and be like, hey, I was having a bad day, or I'll even ask, be like, hey, you all right? It's not like you. And give them a chance to actually express what's going on and, realize, hey, oh, my bad. didn't mean to snap, but this is what's happening. And just then by being heard and me saying, oh, well, that sucks. I'm sorry. I empathize with you. Well, how can we fix it? You know, just that little interaction, you know, shifts their perspective and they can go about their day and, maybe help somebody else in the process.
Yeah.
Mhm,
That's a lot of
mhm,
emotional intelligence that the world is really a lot of the world is trying to embrace. I find that encouraging. Uh,
mhm. But it's taken too long.
it takes a
Mhm,
long time and it takes a
mhm,
widespread of that emotional
mhm,
intelligence to to
mhm,
spread out and not be overcome by the pain.
mhm,
Because the fact is, we weren't put here to be in pain and to beat on one another. That's illogical. I mean, you want to just take it, not at a heart level, but at a logic level. It's illogical because the species wouldn't survive. We are brought here to love.
Yeah, to love and to grow and, pass on our knowledge to the future generations. And that is a big thing. I don't want the generation, like my kids' generation, to grow. I wish they could grow up the way we did back in the 80s and like early 90s, where you could play outside and not worry about, any of it. We, you came home when the street light came on, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And you drank out of the hose and you played with your friends and you got skin knees and all that. And nobody freaked out. You went for bike rides and not had to worry about any of the BS of like human trafficking and all of that. And that's the world that I wish my kids grew up in, you know? And
Yeah.
it was so much easier back then than it is now. There's so much fear in the world, and fear makes people irrational.
Hmm.
And that's what I think the biggest thing is. Like a lot of people that don't stand up for others when they see them being abused because they're scared that they're going to be turned on themselves, you know?
Right. Yeah,
And
that was going on
mhm,
when we were
mhm,
young, when our parents were young.
mhm,
We just didn't see it as much. So now
and it
everybody,
wasn't talked about.
right.
Mhm. And because our parents dealt with it. They just lived through it instead of, you know, speaking up against it. Well,
Yeah.
that isn't good,
No.
you know. So, yeah, I'm teaching my kids to stand up for themselves. Stand up for what's right, for what they believe in. Do as you will, but harm none. Live with kindness
Yeah.
instead of anger and resentment and believing that the world owes you something. No, we are here by grace. We're not owed anything.
Yeah.
What you put out into the world is what you get back.
Right. Simple consequences and this doesn't mean a punitive life, but we are responsible for ourselves and something a lot of people are scared of. They're like responsibility. No, it's actually a happy thing. You get to choose your own actions and your own actions. And like you said, what goes around comes around. So
Mhm.
don't judge
Yeah. Don't
and
judge me. You don't know the walk I've walked.
don't be
Mhm.
judged. And but
Mhm.
yourself, be responsible for yourself. And there's just a natural consequence to that. When we don't go around judging, we aren't judged. It depends on uh
Mhm.
the neighborhood we're in, perhaps. But
The Midwest is
we're
great.
we're in a very, very
Mhm.
yeah, and we're in a very, very judgmental climate, political climate, blame oriented, and the more that happens, and the more people get angsty, the more people have angst come around them. So, and that leads me back to when you are in an abusive relationship, you are everything around is angst and pain, and so
You walking on eggshell.
a mindset thing where the consequences of your mindset are that that keeps going on because you're having to be so careful and so and take things so as not to upset the status quo and cause more harm. So when you changed that and when you started to change that, first you had to upset the apple cart, right? And then once that's all come out, where's the turning point? Can you pinpoint a time when there was a turning point where you could manifest a different outcome around yourself because you were actually thinking more positively and not being in that eggshell place?
Um, Honestly, not being in that eggshell place, a big shift was actually moving out of Iowa
Mm,
down here,
mm-hmm,
because before that, I was still dealing with the courts. I was dealing with, he was harassing, and he did not stop until 6 months ago. And I left him in 2020. Um, when he moved to Nevada, um, finally had enough. I tried to help him. He was threatening my family, Matt's 2-year-old nephew, my son, my 80-year-old mother, constantly sending emails and like all that kind of stuff. I mean, even revenge porn. I don't know if you know what that is, but basically when significant other or an ex takes personal videos and pictures that you had done. We were together for 10 years. So yeah, we had some of that stuff, trying to keep the relationship alive. And he would post them on different things when I was trying to get my coaching up and going. Um, Trying to basically discredit me in any way. He would send pictures to Matt, trying to make Matt think I was cheating. Well, finally, I had my day in court with the judge where I was heard during his sentencing for violating. And the judge extended the no contact order over not just me, but Matt's entire family, my entire family, and social media, to where he could no longer use social media to attack me or Matt or anybody like that in my business. Anyway, he could not have anybody contact me through social media, none of it. And that truly, number one, finally being heard by the legal system and was validating. He was silenced. I had my time to speak, finally, when he never would acknowledge what he did, the mental or emotional abuse. He used to say that I was abusive to him because I was smart. I would use my intelligence to make him feel stupid. I would use big words to confuse him. No, that's how I've always talked. We've known each other since we were in first grade. He knows this. But those were just things that he would do. So when I finally had that day in court, it was like the the whole the shroud was lifted,
mm,
and that mindset was shifted. And income's constants, Leland. And I started my audio rooms more consistently. I was on Aaron's show
mm-hmm.
the twice, and then like a cameo on the Halloween one. I've been on Dr. Constance's show twice, The Level Up, and I wrote in Rattled Awake Volume 3 a chapter called Phoenix Awakening. I have submitted my manuscript to the publisher for Rise of Crystal Phoenix. I'm taking part in two other collaborative books. Um, I am literally just powerhousing because that shroud was lifted. I felt I do have a voice. Everybody keeps telling me, it's important, be heard. And I felt like the eggshells were gone. I could, I could actually see again. I would go into my mindscape and the waters weren't turbulent anymore because my mindscape is a little hut on the beach.
Yeah.
And mm, depending on where my mental health was how the waters were. The ocean had just a calm, gentle wave. That meant that I was at peace. For the last few years, they had been turbulent, you know, as much as I would try to calm and center myself. But after that day, it just like the waters calmed and that mental shift happened because I was validated on that in that one place that I felt that had truly let me down. You know, so our justice system is supposed to protect the victim, you know, and the fact that Iowa just completely didn't, and it was a subconscious thing, but once that day happened, it was just like, wow. And that mental shift of, okay, I really can just be me again and not worry.
Right. Right. Because you're no longer when somebody finally says that you are right, that this is it doesn't matter the reason for it, this is inappropriate and cannot go on, you're heard, you stop gaslighting yourself.
Mhm. And I stopped wondering, why me? What did I do? Why wasn't I good enough? Why, you know, what did I do wrong? And one book that was really hard read but really helped was Why Does He Do That?
Hmm.
Um, because it dives into the psyche of abusers. It's written by somebody that was a therapist for the court appointed abusers to go through, you know, therapy to be able to re-enter, life and whatnot. And they like literally like laid it out like different personality traits and everything. And the whole consistent thing is it's not your fault. And they preyed on you. That is the one consistent thing with every type of abuser. And it, like I said, it was a really hard read, but it made me really grasp the fact that it wasn't my fault. I didn't ask for it. I didn't do anything wrong. In fact, I pleaded and tried and everything else. And it was like, okay, it really isn't. I am good enough. And
Yeah.
forgiving myself and realizing I am enough, even if I'm just enough for me. Heaven forbid Matt and I don't work out, which I don't believe that will ever, I don't think that's going to happen. We love each other. We've gone through hell and back, know, and it also goes to show I'm not that broken. You can find love again after a horrific relationship and be appreciated for who you are, broken or not. Mhm,
Right. I like
mhm,
to I like to talk about wabi sabi
mhm,
kintsugi, the Japanese form
mhm,
of broken pottery being filled in
where
with
they put the
gold,
gold.
and
Hmm.
it's so much stronger and
Hmm.
beautiful.
I loved that post that you had made about that actually.
I love that because it's one of my favorite concepts and one of my strongest images. And for the audience, for those of you who don't know, Rattled Awake is an anthology series for authors of various with various stories to come, and this was that your first published?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you can find those on
Amazon.
Amazon. There is I think there are six of them now.
Yeah.
Um
Number 6 was just dropped actually a few days ago. And
right,
that one is specifically a podcaster's one. Like
right.
different stories from podcasters. That was that one. It
Yeah.
was my book was kind of like we did a lot of family stuff, I noticed. It was
Mm,
a lot about family. Kim Groshek's one chapter was about the gremlins in our mind kind of thing.
mm,
But it was a good one. But
yeah.
I've enjoyed all of them.
And anthologies are a great way to get our voice out, our story out, and to actually get coaching on that for not just telling your story, but having it be so that it's accessible to
Mhm.
more readers. So
Mhm.
these the Rattled Awake anthology series specifically looks for people with great and great true and pithy stories.
Yeah.
Um,
The whole thing is that moment that rattled you awake and made you shift your life, made you have a complete shift. Like my chapter I tell the story about Mackenzie, saying that to me, and that was my true wake up moment,
yeah,
of time to go.
yeah,
Um, and then the living in the gray, Dr. CJ is like, well, why don't we go a little different and talk about how you going from that kind of a relationship to having a mostly healthy relationship
mhm,
after, because when you're in that relationship, like I was, you know, oh, nobody will love you. Yeah, I'm the best you're ever gonna be. You're too broken. Nobody's gonna want you after me, blah, blah, blah. Bullshit.
yeah.
Hmm.
Wabi sabi, baby.
Hmm. Hmm.
um, so yeah, and along that line, I'd like to actually go into now the fog has lifted and the darkness has been pushed into the past. I mean, you have the mindset of a good relationship and of taking care of yourself, and that you are whole, and you're not only whole, but that you've survived a war,
Hmm.
and that there's
A war on two fronts, a war within myself and a war of survival.
and
Mhm.
there's greatness after. So you're coaching
Mhm.
at this point, and that's come out of this whole mindset of what is forward thinking, what you want, and who you are.
Yep.
And so tell the audience about that, what you hope to, and what you're doing with your coaching, with your life at this point in this new
Mhm.
chapter.
Right now, I've been focusing on getting my book and getting my speaking career like fully up and going. But within my coaching, I do mindset. I do specialize in working with people that have been through domestic abuse, trauma, relationships like that,
Yeah,
and showing them that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. They can, overcome. They do deserve better, and getting them out of the victim zone. If Because I have found people that don't want to get out of the victim zone. They want that pity. They want that, oh, I'm sorry that happened to you. And, they want that pity. That's not who I want to work with. You
Mhm.
know, I want the ones that want to take what they went through and use it to, make themselves stronger.
Mm.
They want to overcome because trauma does stay with you. Those scars are always there. But at the same time, it doesn't have to define you. It doesn't, my anxiety doesn't define me. It's not who I am. It doesn't cripple me.
Mm.
My adult ADHD, none of that. These terms aren't who I am. Who I am is Crystal Phoenix. I rose above it and I can help you do the same thing. You know, between meditation techniques and journaling and different forms of art. I even went so far as I got a art therapy certification so that I could help my kids and my clients' children express themselves through art and be able to understand it, what they're really trying to say, you know,
Wow.
because there's a lot of times you can't express yourself in words. The mind doesn't always connect with the mouth, which is why writing is a great thing. Um,
Mm.
I express myself through music. I um I have different playlists for all of that. And I encourage my clients, to do that. If you're feeling angry, play some angry rock, let it out. Or if you want to shift it, you know, then play some, happy jazz or, show tunes. I'm big with musicals. You
Mhm.
know, The Greatest Showman is like my anthem, that whole movie. But This Is Me is really, really spoke to me when in my darkest hours.
Yeah.
And I won't lie, I know every song from Fiddler on the Roof and have since I was 5. When I'm really like feeling blah, I will pop that CD in and remember watching that movie with my mom and her getting tickets for me to be able to see it live on not Broadway because I've never been to New York, but it was the Broadway cast and getting to see it performed. And it just takes me to a good place. And I sing along with, Matchmaker. And If I Were a Rich Man, I mean, I literally know every song.
Yeah.
And it puts me in a good place, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, there's something that I do is to create an atmosphere. And I think that's what a lot of people do. They just don't realize that they
Mm-hmm,
actually have control over that atmosphere. So, and you, I love what you said about how we communicate, because we don't all communicate the same way.
mm-hmm,
You
mm-hmm,
can communicate through food, for goodness sake, but
mm-hmm.
through art, through
I'm a trained chef, so yeah, I get the communicating through
yeah,
food.
yeah,
My dad was, and he taught me. So, yep. Mm-hmm,
yeah, yeah. Through movement, through
mm-hmm,
through music, through either making up your own music or
mm-hmm.
through emoting with other music that you know, through different types of art, through drumming, through
Oh,
I
drumming helped a lot with my anxiety. There was a time where I didn't go anywhere without a set of drumsticks
yeah,
because when my like at the beginning when my anxiety was at its peak, I mean, I literally would be driving down the road and just pick up my drumsticks and start drumming on with one hand against the steering wheel.
yeah,
But it helped. It helped get that energy out. And that's one of the big things that I work with is getting that negative energy out to allow the good to come in.
right,
Mhm.
right, yeah.
Mhm.
Don't let the negative energy define you,
And
and
consume.
change, yeah.
Mhm.
Um, it's interesting what you said about people who are basically attached to their pain because of the
They
feedback
like the
that
they
for
like the attention.
yeah. And that's the only positive attention that they're
Mhm.
getting, and so but removing the negative allows you to actually replace that
Mhm.
and recognize that that isn't
Mhm.
really positive. That's just a band-aid.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's really just so
Mhm.
important to change those parameters around.
Mhm.
As we wrap this up,
Mhm.
how
Mhm.
would you tell what would you tell the audience as far as what to do to start the ball rolling in the right direction?
Um, well, if you're in a abusive relationship, the first thing I always tell you, people, my clients and everything, is to set up a escape plan, a safe way to leave, and also, as much as I hate the authorities, report, get a no contact order and report every violation, document everything, and then get into a support, build a support system, because in the beginning you're going to need it, because you're going to fake it till you make it. You're having to rebuild yourself and figure out who you are again, because for so long you're that, you know you don't know. I mean, when I got out, I was like, I just want to get back to being who I used to be. And then I did reflection, and then I'm like, you know I didn't really like her much either. you know I liked certain aspects, but at the end of the day, I didn't really like her much either. So I was able to finally fully discover who I was meant to be, who, and that self-reflection therapy, because therapy is important, you know, and getting into a support group, talking to someone, journaling. Um, I wrote my ex multiple letters and burned them, but because there was no point on sending them, I'm gonna
Yeah.
read them anyway. But just getting all the emotion out and then burning it, letting all that negative out into the just out into the world, so the good can come in. Just it was freeing to just put it all out there, all of that anger and hatred and everything. It made it to where I could forgive him for what he put me through.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not forgiving him for him. I don't care if he ever knows I forgave him. Forgave him for me, because keeping that anger and resentment bottled up inside will eat you alive. It actually causes illness.
Yeah.
So, and forgiving yourself, you have to give yourself the room to grow and forgive yourself for what happened. That's the biggest step, is the acceptance and forgiveness. Because without that, you won't fully move on. You'll be stuck in that space.
Yeah. The groups add accountability and give you the chance to
Mhm.
forgive yourself, because you're also
Mhm.
forgiving others in the
Mhm.
group for the things that they've
Mhm.
stepped into unwittingly. And so
Mhm.
yeah, the groups are incredibly important. Having an
Having
ex
that
man.
safe space to be heard and not judged. It's one of the things that I pride myself in my audio room, of having that safe space for people to share their stories and their emotions and not be judged.
Yeah.
It, you know,
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing. It's one of my rules. When I open my audio room, especially if I see new people in there, you've heard me say it. It's like, this is a safe space. I have no problem with differing of opinions as long as you're kind about it. I'm good with an open debate. Try and change my mind. I'm good with that as long as you are kind, and you're not hurtful in the way you do it. It's a safe space to just share. And having that safe space where people feel comfortable to share their opinions, their hopes, their dreams, their pains, is really important for the healing process of anybody, whether you're grieving for a loved one, grieving for a relationship. you know,
Yeah.
just or have just really bad self-confidence. Having that safe space to grow and express yourself is so healing. And that's one of the big things that I want my clients to know. It's like, I am a safe space. I will not judge you because everybody walks what they walk. And as long as you've learned from it and you're trying to grow, who am I to judge you? My past sure as heck isn't perfect. So, but who I am now is someone I'm proud
There's
of.
nothing wrong with having had pain. There's nothing wrong with having pain, except that you don't want to be in it. So get out and and let it go to those safe spaces. Look, Crystal, thank you very much. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you being on the show.
I appreciate being here, and I will give you guys all an update on when the actual published date is, since I am now signed with a publisher for Rise of Crystal Phoenix, which is my story. And it also has a reference list in the back of safe spaces, both mental health and shelters, things like that, for people to be able to get safe.
Yeah,
And
that's an
it's a
incredible
worldwide list,
resource.
not just in the US.
Oh, wow.
Mhm.
Wow. That is really an incredible resource.
I took
Well,
the time
thank you.
and reached out to my contacts throughout the world, and
Yeah,
they put together a list for me.
wow. So, as soon as that information is available, we'll have that down in the show notes for the moment. Down in the show notes, I have how you can reach out to Crystal and also the information for the Rattled Awake anthology. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for staying through that episode. And if you want to know more and to connect with Crystal, then her information is down in the show notes. Also, she can talk to you about all the different methods of going forth in safety and healing to go on your own joyful paths. So I appreciate you being here. And please share this episode with anybody that you know who may need it, even if you think that they just might. It's really important that we get the narrative out there and let people know that this is both normal and not acceptable. And people need to heal and deserve to heal as we belong. Every one of us belongs. So I appreciate you. If you liked this episode, please hit like. And I would appreciate it if you would share and also push the subscribe button. Let me know if you have anyone else that you would like to see on the joyful path, including if it's you have to have lifted yourself and now you are lifting others. Appreciate you, and I'll see you next week. Ciao.